Welcome to the Why We Believe show, where members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints share their inspiring stories of faith and conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Brothers and sisters, let's begin in a storm. It's the fourth watch, the coldest, darkest hours. The disciples are in a small boat on the Sea of Galilee. The wind is against them, and they've strained at the oars for hours. These are experienced fishermen, but they're losing. Then the apostles see someone walking on the water, and they're terrified. The Savior calls out, "Be not afraid." Peter is the only apostle who gets out of the boat, and for a few impossible steps, a fisherman walks on the sea. But he takes his eyes off the Savior, sees the storm, doubts, and begins to sink. He manages 3 words, "Lord, save me." And quote, "Immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him," unquote. Immediately. No lecture first. Jesus just lifted him. This is who Jesus Christ is. He's the great lifter. And his atonement is the ultimate act of lifting. The Savior said it himself, quote, "And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me," unquote. What's sinking each of us? Maybe it's a sin we've stopped believing we can lay down. Maybe it's a grief that won't ease, worry over a child, or a marriage grown cold. Whatever it is, picture it for a moment. Now, picture Jesus' hand already reaching for you. No one is beyond his reach. He asks only that we bring it to him so he can help lift it or strengthen us to carry it. Often, he lifts us by sending others to help carry burdens too heavy for us to lift alone. Let me tell you about 3 lifters in my life. Decades ago, I was the CEO of a publicly traded .com company. It was the dawn of the .com era when nobody knew what they were doing, and I fit right in. Crystal and I had just bought our first home, and she had just given birth to our first daughter. Then the .com bubble burst, and I watched $11 million disappear in a single day. That was not my best Tuesday. The company was gone. One night, the bookkeeper showed up at our house and quit. I lacked the funds to replace her and the wisdom to know what to do next. Then Crystal happened. She had no bookkeeping experience, but she volunteered to take care of our books. She brought our daughter with her to work for 2 years with no pay until we'd clawed our way out and rebuilt a business. Our daughter, Miriam, learned to get attention by toddling from office to office, pushing the button on the front of our tower computers. Crystal had every reason to turn against me, to say this wasn't what she signed up for, that I wasn't being a good provider, but she never did. Instead, she rolled up her sleeves and went to work. She lifted me and the company. If you think losing a company is bad, now I'm going to tell you something even more embarrassing. The second lifter is Troyce Miskin. He's a former bishop in our stake. One week, the member who usually brought our sacrament bread was going out of town. So he dropped the bread off at my house early in the week, and it was placed in the freezer. I forgot about it completely until I was on the stand about to conduct. Our ward had no sacrament bread because of me. Bishop Miskin had already problem-solved this exact scenario. He calmly asked me to move the sacrament to the end of the meeting, sent his other counselor home for more bread, and never said one word of criticism. The kindest people often lift by leaving the lecture unspoken. The third lifter is Clark, a Harvard professor brought in to lift the church's digital ventures as newspapers were sinking. He bought my company and hired me. He gave me a project and a goal that felt nearly impossible. He believed in me before evidence did, which is a special kind of lifting. He gave me the resources I needed and helped lift a project I never could have lifted alone. Our families lived in the same cul-de-sac. In fact, when we moved in, he and his family were there unloading the moving vans. We ended up carpooling to work, which gave me a friend and a mentor who lifted me and wouldn't let me sink. When Crystal became bedridden, Clark and Christine lifted us again and again. Toward the end of my time working with Clark, I was buying out a business partner, and I had a small window to close the deal. My funding was lined up. Then, at the last minute, it fell apart. I only had a few weeks to find a new funding source, or the consequences would have been catastrophic for me financially. Clark introduced me to the person who funded the buyout, even though the funder required me to leave Deseret Digital Media to work for the funded company. Clark lifted me right out of his company. It takes a rare sort of friend to do what's best for you and not for them. Being lifted and then lifting others is not a side feature of the gospel. It's at the heart of it. For example, at baptism, we covenant to bear one another's burdens. In the temple, we lift those who can't lift themselves. And the goal of all of this is exaltation, a word that literally means to be lifted up. Jesus lifts us. Then he asks us to be lifters. President Monson taught, quote, "We are the Lord's hands here on the earth, with a mandate to serve and lift his children," unquote. Let's look for the one who's beginning to sink, the widow eating alone, the teenager feeling invisible, the friend quietly slipping under. A face likely came to your mind. We don't have to lift everyone. Just start by reaching for that one. President Uchtdorf said, quote, "Lift where you stand. You don't have to lift the whole piano, just the part in front of you," unquote. Before we go to bed tonight, let's each reach out to our one person the way Jesus reached for Peter. In February, Elder Clark G. Gilbert was called as an apostle, the man who quietly lifted one coworker in his carpool and one family in his cul-de-sac was called to lift the world. The Lord calls lifters. On the day he was called to this calling, Elder Gilbert said, quote, "This is an amazing time to point people to the Savior Jesus Christ," unquote. That's what living prophets and apostles do. They lift us towards Jesus. I've weathered many fourth watch storms, and I'm so grateful for the kind hands that have reached down and lifted me. Crystal's hands, Bishop Miskin's hands, Elder Gilbert's hands, and many of you. And one of the most amazing things about this whole lifting concept is as we are lifted by the Savior and the others who serve as his hands, we love those people more, and it makes us want to be lifters ourselves. I know Jesus Christ lives, and I love him. He is the great lifter. He lifted Peter. He lifted me, and I promise he will lift you. And he is still reaching, usually through people like you and me. So today, let's each reach out and be lifters. My name is Nathan Gwilliam, and I'm the host of the Why We Believe show. Usually you hear me interviewing other people who share their amazing stories of faith and conversion. This is my first solo episode on this show. If you liked it, please go to YouTube and leave a comment. Let me know if you'd like more solo episodes like this.